So here's where we stand in the National League. In both of the division series, we are tied up at 1 game apiece as we change venues for the first time in October in the MLB postseason. We will head to Citi Field tomorrow night, where the Phillies, DRS, have the pitching advantage. Aaron Nola gets the start against Sean Manaea, although Manaea has been great for New York down the second half. The Phils are a minus 142 favorite now, having tied the series in walk-off fashion in game number 2, although the Mets did win game number 1, and the Phils a slight road favorite, ever so slightly, for game number 3 tomorrow afternoon, evening hours.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch, and I do agree with the Phillies being a minus 142 favorite, Ben, because it is about pitching staffs and it is about the totality of the season. We understand how well the Mets have played down the stretch, and there's a lot to that. I've watched Phillies baseball, and usually it's them not playing well all season long, catching fire in August, carrying through to September, and hitting the heck out of the baseball in the month of October, which the Mets can do. But theoretically, if we're looking to be honest, Phillies have, every time they take the mound, the Phillies will have the better pitcher. Bullpens, you could say even, but on the totality of the season, the Phillies had a much better bullpen than the New York Mets, and superstar per superstar in the lineup, it goes to the Philadelphia Phillies. So I do agree, even though technically they don't have home field advantage anymore, the Phillies are the better team and should be priced at that minus 142. I can agree on that.
Yeah, so that's where things stand. The Phils did enter the set as a minus 188 favorite. Of course, the Mets have made it pretty competitive. All right, DRS, now the other one in San Diego. The Padres, you could argue, have had the pitching advantage in every game, maybe outside of game number 1. Certainly last night, Yu Darvish versus Jack Flaherty. There will be no argument for game 3 tomorrow as they head down the 405 or the 5 or however you want to get to San Diego from L.A. between the Padres and the Dodgers. Michael King, who was great for San Diego to start the playoffs in their wild card set against Atlanta, gets the nod tomorrow. San Diego minus 144 for game 3 and an ever so slight favorite, DRS, despite not really having the home field to start, not being the division winner, but tying things at a game all as we get ready for game 3 tomorrow.
Great. Now, look, I told you before the series started, the San Diego Padres are going to win the series. Same way you talk about the Philadelphia Phillies by saying every time we take the mound, it's going to be the Padres with the better pitcher on the mound. That goes a long distance. For star power, man per man, maybe the 2 best players in baseball on the Dodgers, but neither one of them is pitching right now, which includes Shohei Ohtani, which if he was in his form, he probably would be taking the mound in games 1, 2, or 3 and maybe giving you the advantage. But Michael King has been so sensational. And you look at the FanDuel Sportsbook to win game number 3, it's minus 144. Now you rewind this clock, Ben, 2 years and say, hold on. Walker Buehler's on the mound for the Dodgers. That's a stone-cold Dodgers victory, and they're the favorite in this game, no questions asked. But we're still waiting on Walker Buehler to get back to pre-injury form, and we're seeing Michael King as what Walker Buehler was just a few years ago for the for the Dodgers, who now sits on the Padres mound. He has been flawless, and I expect him to be very good here. Now, yes, there's going to be crazy innings. There's going to be pitching performances that we expect and pitching performances that we don't expect here. But I do agree the Padres should be the favorites now, getting home field back, and they have their hammer on the mound in game number 3. Love what I see out of the Padres, and they should be able to win this series, which includes winning game number 3 and taking that commanding 2-1 series lead, which everybody wants in a 5-game set.
And here's where things get interesting. The Phils are the NL pennant favorites. The Dodgers, the second best price, but only 10 cents back, even in front of San Diego by 20 cents. Again, 30 cents separate the top 3 teams. But the Padres are the slight series favorites against L.A., but do have that worst price to win the National League pennant. All right, DRS, let's get to the American League Division Series as we will have a doubleheader of action on this Monday. We start with the Yankees, the number 1 overall seed in the AL, hosting the Kansas City Royals. It was a late rally for the Pinstripes in the Bronx on Saturday night. They win game number 1. And now greater than a $4 favorite at minus 420 to advance to the ALCS.
Yeah, and it does appear high because you're saying, okay, it's a 5-game set. The Royals fought them in game number 1, but then you move forward and say, all right, what do the Royals have here? What can they actually do? They're a little bit outmanned against the Yankees. We can agree upon that. And also, it's not as if they have that Mets effect, Ben, right? Where it's like, wow, the Royals went, 14-3 down the stretch to clinch an average score of, 6 runs per game for their own ball club here. That's not the case here. Usually the cream rises to the top and the Yankees are the better team. I'm not paying that price point, but I'm also going to say I'm not taking the underdog price in the Royals either.
Yeah, I don't really know how this series ends up. The Yankees were the strongest favorite entering the division sets. They were greater than $2. They're now greater than $4. I don't think it's a sweep. I do think KC will have something to say either tonight or back in Kansas City, but it could present some opportunities to make sure that you find that value game to game throughout this set. For the Yankees to cover the series spread, they would have to win in 4. That's minus 172, probably better than the over-under of the series. That's minus 245. The Guardians got off to a great start on Saturday against the Tigers, scoring 5 runs in the first. They never looked back. Today, the Guardians are a minus 235 favorite to win the set. But for this game in Cleveland, who starts for Detroit? It's Tarek Skubal. The Gritty Tigers, a minus 130 favorite in the land. Just something to note.
Here's the thing, too. Detroit was hot down the stretch, but wins in the playoffs, it's always going to be starting pitching. And it just seems to me that you're taking a look at the Tigers and go, we might have the best pitcher in the game and absolutely nothing behind him, which means Skubal start, bullpen, 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 Skubal start. That's not a way to win the World Series. Now, they might win today. We'll go over that. But you have a opener out there that gives up, 4 earned runs. You bring in another guy, gives up an earned run behind him. You can't get down 5-0 in games in the playoffs and expect to win. But having said that, it's a shame there's nobody behind Skubal to sort of try to back them up. It is what it is for the Tigers. Good baseball club. Maybe it's just going to run out. But I think they actually tie this up 1-1, though, to be honest.
Yeah, listen, Tarek Skubal was sensational to start things for the Tigers last week in the wild card round against Houston. Here are the American League pennant odds before we hit the break. And again, we will preview both of the games in the AL in our third hour. The Yankees an odds-on favorite at minus 140. With a great path comes great pressure and responsibility to pay it off and get to a World Series, something the Yanks have not done since 2009. We saw the doubleheader of Game 2s in the NLDS yesterday. The Phillies walk it off at home against the Mets. They even up the set behind 6 home runs and a feisty environment in Los Angeles. The Padres score 10 and even the National League Division Series against the Dodgers at a game apiece. Tonight, 2 games in the American League Division Series. First in Cleveland, first pitch a little bit after 4 p.m. Eastern Time. The Guardians, a strong game 1, a strong opening inning of the opening game of the ALDS. They lead 1-0. But the Tigers are a road favorite. Why? The presumed and guy who is going to win the American League Cy Young Award, Tarek Skubal, is on the bump for Detroit. The Tigers DRS, a minus 130 road favorite in the land. Will Detroit even up the ALDS when the night is through?
They should, but if we're looking at all 4 pitchers tonight that are due to start, there's really no area that you're going to say, you know what, I'm going to fade this, because the ERA's been over the past 60 days 1.94, 2.58, 2.92, 2.72. So it's not as if we're going into this saying, like, if there's unbelievable mismatches on the mound, which theoretically you probably should have on a night-to-night basis when Skubal's out there. Hear me out on this. He's been fantastic. I do give the upper hand to Detroit, but let's go over this game. The Cleveland Guardians are going to show up. They have a formidable, lineup here against left-handed pitching. To be honest, the first 6 guys in that lineup over the past 30 days, look at the weighted on base percentages. 446, 494, 363, 401, 565, and 328 against left-handed pitching. But this isn't tomato can left-handed pitching. Let's just go through the end of the season, and we're going to wait for the playoffs. This is Tarek Skubal, the best pitcher in Major League Baseball. He should be able to hold down the fort. Now you flip it over to the other side and say, well, Matthew Boyd's not that great a pitcher, but I just told you, a 2.72 ERA. His xFIP is 3.89, which typically during the regular season, I'm like, yeah, let's move on. Let's not fade that guy because it's not high enough. You like that danger zone, 4.5 or higher in the xFIP. So he's quality. Now, if you say, all right, the Tigers should have a decided advantage in this game on the mound, somewhat I agree with you, but let's take a look at the hitters in the lineup for the Detroit Tigers and what they've done against left-handed pitching over the past month. Boyd, he has actually struggled with right-handed batters and left-handed batters. 3.78 and 3.78, actually an equal weighted on-base percentage on both sides. Now, granted, it's only 58 batters, and the majority of those batters from the right-handed side, 52 of the 58. So let's erase the left-handed batters and just focus on the right-handed batters, which will be the majority of the lineup tonight. But if we look in totality, Ben, and say, well, how have they actually done as a team against lefties? Let's go over that ISO power number, which you won around 165 or higher. Vierling, 074. Henry Malloy, 0. Ibanez, 100. Perez, 045. Torkelson, 053. Meadows, 138. Rogers, 0. Sweeney, 042. The only positive there is left-handed batter Riley Green at a 242. Everybody else is below. So theoretically, you see that 6 and like, I got to take the over. I don't know if we get 7 runs tonight, to be honest. So I'm going to take the under in this ballgame, which, by the way, Detroit didn't even score in game number 1. We'll see if they can get off the map. And I don't expect 7 runs in a schoolable start going up against Detroit tonight. So 6, wild number. I'm still going under.
6, a flat 6, not even 6 and a hook.
Unbelievable.
6. That is the number. Tarek Skubal, sensational in his opening start last week in Houston. Can he continue that today in Cleveland? Now let's go to the Bronx. The Yankees, they came back to win in game number 1. The Royals did not make it easy, but Alex Verdugo delivering for the Pinstripes. So the Yanks, a home favorite, minus 152 against Cole Reagans and the Royals. Reagans outdueled Corbin Burns a week ago in Baltimore. DRS, will KC even the set? Will New York take a commanding 2-0 series lead back to Kauffman Field?
Going to have to take a little bit of a leap of faith here on the Royals. I'm going to tell you why. But before we get there, Reagan's last 60 days, 52 and a third innings pitched here. You take a look at Rodon, 49 and a third innings pitched. Very similar ERAs, 2.58 here for Reagan's, 2.92 for Carlos Rodon. xFIP numbers, similar also. So what's going to give here in the rotation? Carlos Rodon's a left-handed pitcher, Ben. Last 95 batters he's faced in totality, 77 of those have been right-handed batters. Check this out. A 250 ISO and a weighted on-base percentage of 357. So then you perk up and say the only lefty in this lineup is probably going to be the Pasquatch, Vinny Pasquantino. But if we remove him from the equation, which he hasn't actually had too many at-bats against left-handed pitching because he was injured, the rest of that lineup outside of Hunter Renfroe, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and 0. That's the ISO power numbers against left-handed pitching for the Royals over the past month. Come on now. So the leap of faith is Rodon's going to get hit because he can't get out right-handed batters, but the Royals' right-handed batters can't hit left-handed pitching. Go Royals.
ISO power number. Take a shot.